Good evening and welcome to the Cheese Room podcast. My name is John. I'm your host for this evening, and I'm coming to you from the south coast of the UK, where again it's been a lovely warm day, a much needed change from last winter. And tonight we're here to talk to you about transfers and Tottenham and all things that we can discuss, and even a few other things as well. Joining me, I've got a couple of guys who've had a bit of a quiet weekend. I've done very little. I've got dodgy back. Seeing the chiropractor tomorrow. Hopefully I'll improve. But first of all, I'm going to start with the man in South London, as he's always described by Franco. Mr. Paul Muir, how are you?
Evening, how we doing? Yeah, nice to be on. Another lovely warm day. Weekend-wise, watched a little bit of the under-21 Euros, Skipp, and watched Mr. Udogie give a goal up, unfortunately, at the weekend. But yeah, missing football, but it's always nice to come on and have a chat with you, lovely chaps. It looks like the reunion 30 years on of like a New Order cover band or something like that, doesn't it? It looks a little bit like
is it not American Pie 4?
American Pie 4. Yeah.
That would do.
But yeah, lovely to be on. Lovely to be here.
Who's going to be Stifler's mum? Oh, we'll move on.
No, anyway. moving on.
So next, well, to be fair, Paul, I'm not surprised. These two guys are looking a little bit bedraggled because yesterday, from all the way up north, as Franco describes you, Mr. Seb Short, yesterday you had a bit of a busy day, mate. What did you get up to?
Look at him. Look.
I had a belting day yesterday, to be honest. So massive shout out to my supporters club, Northwest Spurs, who arranged for the third time a match against a Legends team, Spurs Legends team, included Mark Falco, included David Howes, and the manager of our team was Michael Dawson, and also Ashley Neville from the women's team turned up. And actually, those two photographed there are two of the nicest people I think you could possibly want to meet. So I was privileged. I was on the supporters team for the first half, played left wing. Dawson came in, gave us our team talk. He was brilliant, set us all up, and then we played against the likes of David Howes and Mark Falco, a few others, maybe a few people won't have heard of, but certainly those were the names. And did all right, to be fair. Played on the left wing. My knee held up, which everyone was concerned about because a couple of years ago when I played, I had a pretty nasty injury. No one near me, just turned and felt my knee go, and it really went. It wasn't very pleasant at all. Didn't play for a year after. But yeah, lots of strapping, lots of support, and it held up. And then I was just incredibly lucky, even more, that the Legends team needed a player for the second half, and asked, well, kind of half-asked, and I half put myself in the position of, can I? I'll play for you second half. Yeah, me. I'll do it. And played up front, and to receive, I started supporting Spurs in 1986, so just to even receive a pass from David Howes, and then when I managed to turn a player and get past, and he said, "Well done." That's boyhood dream fulfilled, really. 20 minutes in, I felt my hamstring a little bit, so I pulled myself.
Oh, here we go.
No, I was going to say I pulled myself off, but that doesn't quite sound right. Took myself to the bench, and then sat on the bench for the last 20 minutes talking to Michael Dawson and Stephen Clements, who were on the bench. Just hearing some fantastic stories, and both really, really nice guys, and just had an absolute whale of a day. After the game, went to the pub, started speaking to Ashley Neville. She's just lovely, a really, really nice person. Told me a lot of stuff about the women's team. So just really, really interesting. Didn't feel like I was taking up her time. Felt like it was, a genuine, nice conversation. So just really topped the day off, to be honest. So yeah, I had an absolutely belting day. Bit sore this morning. The right leg's not right, but apart from that, I'm all good.
So Seb, was Ashley the only of the women's team there, or were there other women's players?
Yeah, she was the only women's there. She didn't play. She always comes along to support Northwest Spurs. I'm not quite sure what the relationship is there, because when I was speaking to her, she said she lives just outside of London with her family. She's kind of Bedford based, and then she was telling me today is the day that she's going to start she has to do a kind of pre-season, about 6 weeks long. So because of the Women's World Cup, the women's season delayed. I think it starts first week of September. I think she said. So they're doing 6 weeks pre-season, and then they've got a pretty intensive pre-season. And yeah, she told me a few things about the women's team. Let me in on a few little secrets which I can't say, and also it became kind of knowledge. I think that we've now identified our new manager for the women's team. Sounds quite interesting. A bit of another kind of curveball along the lines of Ange, I think, and a change of direction. So should be quite interesting. Maybe I'll tell you a bit more later.
Excellent. And Jimbo's calling game with Seb Nola and Phil Sebastiano Shortinho. There we go.
Could you imagine that on the back of your shirt? Could you imagine that, Shortinho on the back of your shirt? What number are you, Seb? Number 3? Right back.
No.
It's got to be 11, Annie, if you plays that.
No, this is the thing. I was expecting 7, and I got 6, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm not exactly the big strapping centre half that you might expect the 6 to wear. But I'll tell you what, more shout out to Northwest Spurs as well, because the shirt that we got, we obviously get to keep it as like a crest and everything. Says, yeah, I mean that is a beautiful shirt. Shame you can't quite see the back of it as well. It's number 6 with the name on the back. So like I say, I mean it is an unbelievable day. You're made to feel like a bit of a superstar, really. Had an hour training, if you like, or kickabout beforehand. I was knackered. That photo with Dawson, that's before we even kicked off, and I looked like I've just run a marathon. So I was knackered before we started, but I was quite pleased. And then obviously Ash Neville, she signed my shirt, and when she was signing my shirt, she was like, "Oh, you played really well today," and that kind of meant the world.
Whoa.
So I was delighted.
She's a good liar as well.
Yeah, she's a good liar. Yeah, it's such a great feeling, and it's an absolute privilege to. Oh, that's the best one, Bentancur. That's the best.
That's
one.
A good one, Daniel. Give me that, mate.
Yeah, we'll have that.
Oh my God!
You're never going to the end of this, Paul, are you? This will be going on all season on the pods.
Can we get that? Can we get Teddy? Someone say Teddy Sheffingham, something like that. Good, I like that one.
So normally his hair's all coiffured, but look at it. It's like he's been dragged through a campsite in the middle of a farmer's field. Where have you been, Gibbo? What have you been doing this weekend?
I've been to a music festival, mate. So I'm a little bit tired, a little bit sunburnt. Skin's a little bit dry. Hair's a little bit messed up, mate. So, yeah, nothing is exciting. Really is what, like Seb, obviously, meeting.
Hold on. We are going to get to the transfers.
Players.
We're just doing the intro. Calm. We'll be there. Sorry, Gibbo, go on.
So obviously nothing I've been doing. I've not been doing nothing to do with Spurs, mate. I haven't even really looked at my phone or anything. I was having a weekend away from them. But yeah, weekend in Glastonbury with the family, 5 days. So yeah, great weekend. But
what I particularly like is just before the show, I went for a quick bit of a walk, trying to loosen myself up. I was looking at my Twitter, and suddenly this appears on my Twitter.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah, Glastonbury.
Front row of the Foo Fighters, that is. Well, that's my wife and my daughter in front of me. They're on by the railings, and I'm behind them. So that is like I've never got to the front of a concert, like the front row. So literally, all that was in front of me was the fence. You had a little gap in then the stage. So and being there for the Foo Fighters, mate, was just like dream come true, really. Which is a little bit sad, I know people will say, but it was wicked. So yeah, You what, mate?
Hey!
Mate, my hearing's terrible anyway. So being that close to the speakers and that doesn't bother me. Like telling people to put earplugs in that, I like to hear it being banged out, mate. So,
did you see Elton?
Yeah. Did you see that picture I sent? I was right near the front for that, but we were stood there for 9 hours. We got a good space.
Oh.
We were just literally stood there for 9 hours while it was getting packed in like that. But yeah, my daughter was made up. Absolutely brilliant. Adzi said in here, Rick Astley. Saw him. Absolutely fantastic. He was brilliant, Paul, honest. Brilliant, mate.
No, I saw him on I saw him play drums on an AC/DC thing on the BBC.
Amazing.
He looked like he was like giving it some. So yeah,
and he
did
did
weekend.
And this set he did with this. I never got to that. I think we went to watch something else. He did a Smith set with the Blossoms, and loads of people were saying how good it was. He said it's fantastic. But yeah, a lot of good bands. Really good weekend with my family. Ready to do it all again next year now. So,
let's get this Maverick in the second sequel in 20 years.
Yeah,
when the hair's receded a bit more.
I mean, it looks terrible there, doesn't it? See through.
What did you make of Arctic Monkeys, Gibbo?
I watched Arctic Monkeys 10 years ago, and they were really good. I watched them now, and I'm not sure whether Turner's taking the piss, or
he's got to be.
He's got to be taking the piss. Like my Trude and the kids were sort of like looking at me, like, "What is all this about?" You know, he came on and he looked like a character Steve Coogan had come up with, like an old singer who's come back and just wants to stand there, and it's just like, you know, like, oh, fabulous. Saying it's just weird, mate. Slow in stuff like Mardy bumming that down. Yeah, not what they were sort of like. I had to watch, but it wasn't great. It was nowhere near as good as, you know, after the first 4 albums. It's just gone a bit silly.
Right, we've been going 11 and a half minutes and we haven't talked about football at all or Tottenham, so we've done quite well. We've got 51 of you liking. Please do click that like button. Otherwise, I'll get moaned at by caller again. We will start. We already lost one bloke who's got fed up of us. So we will start with, I'm not going to pronounce his first name, but Vicario, whose nickname is Venom, isn't it? Is that right?
I think
apparently
so.
Yeah.
Apparently so.
Vicario the Venom. This is on the left-hand side is a picture of his Insta where he hashtag living the dream, obviously in English. We believe that he flew over to the UK yesterday and stayed at the lodge last night and had his medical today. So hopefully at some point in the next few hours, maybe tomorrow, he will be announced as our new goalkeeper. Seb, what are your thoughts on the new Italian?
I've said it before with kind of whoever we speak about, every transfer is a risk. You know, I've seen a lot of people saying why we not stumped up for David Raya. Premier League experience, 40 million was required. For me, that's just as much of a risk. I am hoping, with what I'm seeing, with the names that we've been linked with, that we're kind of going back. We need a reset. We've all talked about this. We know this. And I think we need to go back to doing what I think Tottenham have been quite good at historically, which is identifying the younger talent. We can't pay the 80, 90, 100 millions. We pay the 20, 30, maybe even 40 million and get these youngsters in. Look, whether you criticise it or not, there has to be some kind of sell-on value, I think, in Daniel Levy's mind. My fear, it's not even a fear. What I think we're going to have to all kind of do at the start, particularly at the start of the season, but for most of next season, is cut these players some slack. This goalkeeper's coming in and he doesn't know now, and I don't think we know yet. When I say we, I mean the club, know who he's going to have in front of him, who's his defender's going to be. I don't know if this lad speaks English. Communication's obviously going to be key. We're linked with a number of centre-backs, so I'm sure there'll be some change in the back line going forward. It's a huge move for him. But from what I've read, and obviously I think we all kind of, as soon as the name comes up, we all do a little bit of research if it's someone that we're not 100% sure of. He seems like a talent, and he's linked with big clubs. He's forced his way into the Italian setup playing for Empoli, who I do know a little bit about actually, because one of my sons decides to follow Verona of all clubs. So I kind of keep an eye on the bottom of Serie A, kind of some big games at the end of last season, and he looks a talent. He looks raw, and so let's see.
There you go. Just keep going back to the non-football. Apparently, we nailed up the Arctic Monkeys. So there you go. Cheers, Ben. Vicario is a club purchase, not an Ange purchase. Okay, time will tell on that one, I guess.
Who would you? That would be weird if Ange Postecoglou had a goalkeeper that he wanted to bring in that wasn't Joe Hart.
Well,
that would be weird.
Seb, by all accounts, Ange has got a bit of an encyclopedia on players around the world. From what I've gathered from listening to a lot of the journalists and Celtic fans. Keith, can you just expand on this? Empoli defence was similar to ours, as in terrible, or the way they played, or is this? Give us a bit more on that, just so we can come back to that. Paul Vicario.
I did a little bit of deep dive on him last week when he first came to our prominence. Seemingly, we've been looking at him for quite a while. So that probably alludes to what we're talking about in a little while as well with Paratici. This sounds like he's got Paratici's kind of like fingerprints, not in a bad way, not in a CSI way, all over it. He looks good with his feet. I'm with Seb. Every transfer that we get has an element of risk to it. It's quite clear that we need a new goalkeeper after Hugo's kind of deterioration this past season, and then he said he was off to he was interested in going to the Middle East. So it's a shame that he didn't get Raya, because I liked Raya. I liked him at Brentford. I thought he did very well against us. Great double save from Richarlison when they were us at the Lane. So, but I'm prepared to give this guy a chance. I'm all ready for things to be rocky at the beginning. The goalie might look a little bit kind of raw, as Seb said there. But yeah, let's give him a chance. But he looked, good shot stopper, all the things that we come to expect from a decent goalkeeper. But he's good with his feet as well. Looking at the videos over the weekend, so I'm quite pleased. Quite pleased.
Yeah, Gibbs.
Yeah, mate. I've same as everyone else. You got to give these guys a chance when they come in. But so I read a bit, done the usual research. He looks like he's got a bit of a presence about him, I don't know anything about the Italian league. I don't watch Italian football, so I don't know anything about him. But I listened to a good segment there's an Italian podcast, the Italian football podcast. I think Alistair Gold clipped a piece up and put it on his Twitter feed. So I listened to that, and they were talking about this guy, but a few months ago before he was mentioned with us, and they were like waxing lyrical about him, basically saying that probably Onana and Maignan are better keepers than him in the league, and maybe only Onana because he's better with his feet. But they were like basically saying that he's a really good goalkeeper and he's going to get a really big move. So I think from what I've read, we're getting a decent keeper who's highly regarded, and we're not paying over the odds for him. So it's like, what are we paying for him? 20 million?
20 million euros.
So say, for instance, he comes in and it doesn't work out, and Raya was to stay at Brentford and they wanted him, you could probably get your money back on him and move him on if it got to that. But like the guy said, every transfer's a risk. I've said that before on here. So she's got to come in, give him time. I doubt he will speak English, but he's highly thought of. And like I know somebody said it's a club signing, but I read somewhere that Postecoglou had actually spoken to the guy as well. So it's not that they've brought him in and just said, here's a keeper for you. I get the impression that he's highly involved in everything. He seems like he's the type of guy who wants to be involved and know about everything that happens in the club. So, yeah, and if he's in this week, he's in early, in for pre-season, in for the tour. Let's give the guy the benefit of the doubt and let's start trying to get behind the team before, they ain't even played a game yet. So it's no good getting all negative and sort of being down on the guy. We've been saying we got to give this sort of like the new coach and the new setup and what's happening time. So fingers crossed, mate. He'll be a really good keeper for us. And that's all we can do, isn't it? That's all we can do is be positive and hope that he does a really good job for us, rather than just sort of like, I've been told off for swearing, so I can't say the word I was going to say. So not like
say turgid. You love that.
But you know what I'm trying to say. People are already the negativity you get round players that nobody's heard of. We won't pay 40 million for Raya, so we're getting this bloke for 20 million. So he must be half as good, and Tottenham just aren't paying for the top quality players anymore. He may well be just as good as Raya, but we're not going to know till he plays, are we?
If he signed for Brighton or Brentford, we'd be
exactly.
like, why did we not go and sign him?
Exactly.
Ultimately.
Exactly, mate.
So, And the other good thing, we've saved a fair bit of money, it doesn't mean it's going to Joe Lewis's yacht. It means hopefully that will be spent somewhere else in the squad. And we do desperately need to improve other parts of the squad, which we'll come to. But so this keeper...
Sorry, John.
On.
I don't know if when Lloris first came in, obviously he's been prone to more sort of like errors that lead to goals and that. But when he first came in, wasn't he a little bit... First came in, he was like being played with Friedel on and off. But didn't he make a few sort of like rookie mistakes because he wasn't used to the league and the physicality, and he was coming off his line?
His debut was in the Europa League. Was it still the Europa League? Was it UEFA Cup? I think Europa League. And he tried to do a Cruyff turn and got tackled on his own goal line at home at Whitehall Lane, and we went 1-0 down. We won 3-1, but we did go 1-0 down. And he did make that sort of thing. Save-wise, couldn't fault Lloris, but he was always dodgy with his feet from the off.
Yeah.
But what he used to do was fly off his line, didn't he? He used to fly any balls through, he'd come in clear until Lukaku knocked him out, and then he was never the same again. Paul?
When we bought Lloris, he came when AVB was manager, didn't he? And Friedel upped his game, and he didn't start for the first 4 or 5 games, did he?
No.
I remember because Friedel was playing really well. I remember Friedel at Chelsea and playing really, really well. Do we expect this guy to start? Question for the three of you. Do we expect him to come in and start? Or are we not seeing one Forster? Yeah, okay.
No.
All right. Feathers.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Forster did start, because Forster will have the whole of pre-season. Whereas Vicario has obviously been with Italy, isn't he, at the Nations League? So maybe, it depends if he's going to have another holiday now, or if he'll start pre-season this week. Because he might say, I'm going to go for it. Because some players do that.
Yeah.
Right. So who do we think has been the key to him coming in? Because I think a lot of us presumed it was Gabbanini, the chief scout, who every time I hear his name, I think of Marco Gabbiadini, the 90s Sunderland and Derby striker. I don't know if anyone else has got those vibes, but my brain just keeps saying that. But Gabbanini. But today we got the news that Fabio Paratici continues to advise Tottenham as a consultant despite his resignation as managing director of football after FIFA imposed a 2.5-year global ban. Apparently some of the parts of the ban have been lifted a little bit, so they're allowed to do this. I have to say this wasn't particularly surprising to me that Paratici was still involved in some way, but it seems to be official now. Seb, were you surprised?
Yeah, it's not a good look. I'm quite against it, to be honest. I think we need to cut ties. I think there's quite a lot of noise about some of the things that were happening concerning Juventus. From what I gather, the other parties involved and under investigation, they've not been cleared. So it just seems very murky. And I don't really like our club being involved in that. I feel like there's going to be some kind of comeuppance that might come out. I'm not saying there is. I don't know anything, but I don't like being associated with it. Even if he's proven not to have done anything wrong, or there's been some great big misunderstanding, just kind of being linked in with that. I don't like it. I do know, and I know that Gabbanini is leading a lot of this. Whether he was whether he led the Vicario deal, I don't know, but I know that he's the main man at the moment. So I'm not quite sure what Paratici's involvement would be. I did see that email that floated about. I don't know if anyone else saw that. This email looked quite fake, but there was a list of names, and Vicario was one of them. Along with other names, it seemed a bit coincidental because it was along with some other names that we've been linked with and some other names that we haven't been linked with, but are quite exciting Tottenham type signings, I would suggest. I don't like the Paratici link at all. I don't quite know where it's come from. I don't know who said that. I know you showed some mail online, but I'm not quite sure where the investigation is. Whether it amounts to Daniel Levy phoning up and saying, "Hey, what do you reckon to Vicario?" and him going, "Yeah, seems good to me," and putting the phone down. That's a lot different to kind of getting involved in negotiations or contacts and things like that. So
that's what it is, isn't it? Are they not saying it's consult? Is he not doing consultancy work for Sampdoria? I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I think that's the thing it's in. That's the
what in Italy. He's working in Italy for Sampdoria.
That's what they're saying. I read earlier that he's been just consulting. So not having anything to do. He's obviously people are just talking to him, and he's giving. What you just consult people, don't you?
If that's true, I would find it very surprising, and I think he's on very, very tricky ground. If you've got a worldwide ban originally for something to 8 weeks later be consulting, basically doing the job that you're banned from doing. I find it hard to believe, but if it's true, I don't like it at all.
That's just what I've read. I don't know if that, but I'm sure they said that's.
I mean, you have been at field for 3 days, Gibbo, so maybe your internet's a bit behind.
Today, mate, I've been trying to do my research for the show. You know, I don't just come into this spare room, sit down, and then go off on a.
You didn't eat any funny mushrooms or anything while you were there, did you?
No.
Not with the kids, anyway.
Not with the kids. I'm just interested to see where that leaves people like Scott Munn now, because obviously they're due to start on the 1st of July. I'm under no illusions that they have not been working like almost like kind of working that kind of period before their official start. I'm sure Ange and Munn are there in the background doing stuff, but if we've still got this crook, and Paratici is a crook. I don't care what you say, and I'm with. Yeah. I don't want him anywhere near the club. I really don't. I think this is a bad look. But if you've got him advising in some kind of like capacity, I think what Gold has done. I think it was Ali Gold from London Football London who broke. I know you just put the Mail online there, but I think it was Gold who broke this story. I think he should put 2 and 2 together, because we were initially looking at Vicario under Don Parra's kind of watch, and I think that's the only reason why I cannot. I know the club have been culpable for a lot over the last 12, 18 months. I cannot see them, kind of like having someone in a consultancy role if it's against any kind of rules, because that's just gross stupidity. And whatever you think, I don't think Levy would do that. So obviously we don't know the ins and outs of the ban. We don't know the kind of like in the kind of like the minutiae of that kind of ban and his agreement with us, etc., etc. Without knowing that, it's very difficult. But just to have this guy on a worldwide ban is an umbrella term, and then have us still, kind of like employing him in some kind of capacity at the moment is just nuts. And I wonder where that does leave people like Munn coming in, and Ange coming in as well. If this guy's like floating around in the background a bit, this kind of shadowy figure, I just wonder what it means. I don't know the answer to that.
My suspicion
anywhere near the club, should he?
Yeah.
My suspicion is he's actually on his notice period effectively, and Levy has just said, "Can you stick around, be a bit of a middleman, or just give us some advice from now and again?" The interesting thing for me is that if he is around, that Steinson, who came in under him a year ago, has now left.
Yeah.
Now, Jamie Donnelly's dad put out a tweet, which he sort of quickly had to backtrack a little bit on, just saying how disappointed he was, because he said Steinson was around with the kids, and Steinson was a big part behind a lot of our kids signing these contracts and would spend time with the parents, and that's quite interesting. And my feeling is Munn is already making changes within the club, and he's a lot to do with this. And I think once Munn's got his feet under the table properly, obviously once he's out of his garden tending to his roses as of Saturday, I think we'll start seeing changes. And whether we get a DOF in soon, I'm not sure. But I do think things will start changing. I think Gabbanini is going to have a key part. There's talk that he could be the DOF down the line as well. I heard that in the podcast earlier this week, but obviously there's all conjecture.
It'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it, really, to have, Paratici, obviously, like we said it before, didn't we? Me and Craig, a bit, that was I felt that was as bad, if not worse, than the whole Conte saga, having him as part of the club. And what that put on the club with all the antics he'd been getting up to and stuff like that. So sure, once you've got him out the door, surely you like I said, I'd only read that earlier that it was consultancy, but you wouldn't want him having anything to do with the football club, John, even if he's on his gardening leave and they could still ask him, you'd just be like, just get him out the door, and the sooner we can sever every tie with him, the better.
He's not on gardening. He's not on any gardening leave or anything like that. If you've found that you can't do your job because you've got a worldwide ban, not put on any gardening leave, he won't have his. It's not like they'll be paying him or his contract up. He's broken the terms of his contract by not being able to do his job. So I doubt very much he's on some kind of gardening leave. I'm with Paul. I would be really, really surprised if there is kind of any movement to still employing him in any way, because it's so litigious. It's so, you've got a major problem there if he's found to have done anything wrong and you're still employing him after a worldwide ban. Whether bits are being lifted or whatever, it's just murky. You know, just don't associate with him. Cut the ties. We've got Scott Munn coming in. We've got someone who seems quite capable underneath in Gabbanini. It looks like Paul said that it's being kind of pulled apart a little bit, which I hope is a good thing. Everyone on the same page now moving forward. And Paratici and obviously the Conte links with him is something that I'm desperate to forget, to be honest. I don't think it's been great. I don't think it was a great look for the club. And now I want it clean. And as I said right at the start of the show, I kind of want to go back to the kind of older Tottenham way of identifying talent and bringing in young, exciting players, whether it be from Europe or from this country. I feel like we really, really got away from it. I feel like that happened under the two managers that we had. I felt like the Steve Hitchin era and the All or Nothing documentary showed us up, made us a laughing stock. And I want these guys to operate more, what's the word, kind of clandestine. That's not the right word, but kind of a quieter way of doing business and identifying talent. I don't want our director of football to be front pages of the sports newspapers as it was under Paratici. That's not his job. That's not what he's there for. And I felt like it held us up in negotiations. I feel like people see us coming now. Levy has obviously not got the greatest reputation, but the whole point of the people that he was hiring was to kind of alleviate some of the pressure and some of the kind of backstory that goes with Daniel Levy. So Paratici didn't do that for me. And so I would be hoping that Scott Munn and whoever he puts in underneath him kind of get their, I know we're not allowed to swear tonight, but get their stuff together and make Tottenham transfer dealings and the link with the youth teams and all that a quiet, efficient model, not an all out there loud, there to be exposed wreck.
Yeah, I hope Paul's right, Seb. I'm hoping you're right, mate, that Alice, that they've just put two and two together and
it seems that way to me. It seems that way to me, Matt.
You don't want him anywhere near. It's just like you said, like Seb said, mate, that is a period in time that we just want to forget everything about it. But it's gone.
What has come out over the last kind of 4, 6, 7 weeks since the close of the season is how much of a mess we are off the pitch. And Nagelsmann is never going to walk into a position like that. All right. So now we've got Munn obviously working these kind of things. We're getting rid of like some of the old kind of guard. Paratici's this kind of like shadowy figure, but things are being put in place now, and that structure to make us run better off the field like a 21st century club and identify the talent that Seb is talking about, finding your next kind of Luka Modric's and these kind of people. We're putting that in place. That's going to take time, right? Just as much as like the football under Ange is going to take time. So this is going to be a slow process for the next kind of year, 15, 18 months to put those kind of like those frameworks in place, like a Brighton do, like a Brentford do. I mean, they've been doing it for 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons. So just as we're going to need to be patient on the field, I think we're also going to need to be patient with the off the field stuff as well. And there'll be mistakes. There will be mistakes. And it looks like the first mistake is Paratici still hanging around like a bad smell.
Definitely.
what I hope is linking with that, and it goes back to when Postecoglou was first announced, is his 4-year contract, and that was the best thing for me when there was talk initially. I think it was of 2 years with maybe a year extension and all that. No, we've got to be in it for what in football parlance now is the long term. 4 years is big. I think I read somewhere like Marco Silva, that he's been there 2.5 years or 3 years at Fulham, and he's the 4th longest serving manager in the Premier League. So 4 years is big. We've got to go with it. The thing that I would hate the most is we have some kind of mini disaster at the start of the season, and I don't think we've got the easiest start in the world. We find ourselves 14th, 15th, maybe even worse after five or six games. The supporters get on the back of Ange or Levy or whatever, and by Christmas he's gone, and everything that we are talking about now and planning for now gets wiped out, and we start again under some kind of new plan. I think that I speak for a lot of supporters when we understand there's going to have to be a bit of patience, and as Paul said, that's on the field, off the field. There's going to be mistakes made, but also I think it's going to be some quite exciting times. I think some of the names that we've been linked with are, like, when we're going back to the goalkeeper and the other ones that we'll come on to. They're young, they're exciting. They're gonna. I think that they're players that are gonna excite us, and that's what we've not had for a couple of years. So yes, there's going to be some mistakes, but I think if we can get behind it and understand the process, then hopefully in the longer term it will be beneficial.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to. So Mr. Romano's been very, very busy this week. He's got to make his money in transfer deadline times, hasn't he, or transfer windows. Tottenham will again push for James Maddison next week. He remains priority target for Postecoglou in that position. Tapsoba, Van der Ven, and one more centre-back in the list. Club will decide for the best option in the coming weeks. I have a feeling that will be down to the finances as well. He also said, John Percy today tweeted, Tottenham are now pushing hard to sign Leicester's England international James Maddison. Clubs are still apart in valuation, but talks are advancing. I can back that up with Paul O'Keefe earlier saying we have bid 40 million plus add-ons. I know that Leicester are reported to want between 55 and 60 million for a man with a year left in his contract. This is a club that got relegated and are in serious financial trouble. They have 4 days to make some sales before the end of this financial year. Paul, thoughts on that?
This will go on. I think this saga will run a bit with Maddison. I know the deadline you spoke about there. It seems like Newcastle have cooled a little bit. They might be signing this young lad, this Italian, who's at the under 21 Euros, who's bloody. Have they got him? I
thought they had. Have they signed? Yeah,
he's signed.
I tell you what, he's this midfielder. He's brilliant. He's him and Goalkeeper next season. Stand by. Really, really good player. So that's good scouting by them. Maddison. I've gone on record before. I'm not Maddison's biggest fan, but we do need a player in that position. We probably the 2/8s that Ange played, or he played with at Celtic. I can see Maddison, fitting into that system. It seems that obviously he wants 9 million quid. We'll pay him that, and then we're just waiting. We're just basically. I don't know. I don't really know where the negotiation went. You want to buy something, it's this price. What do? You negotiate what? You pay more money up front and then pay the balance over a set amount of years or whatever. I mean, again, I don't really know how football transfers work in that aspect. But if they want this money, obviously, clubs want value for their players. But it seems such a reoccurring theme with us that we have to negotiate these. I mean, there was talk about us renegotiating the deals for the Kulu thing 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, and stuff like that. I don't know why it all seems to happen with us. Is that we're trying to negotiate pricing and payment terms and things like this. It's just when other clubs are just like pulling the pin and getting these deals done. So Maddison seems that Ange wants him, and if Ange wants him, then let's get him. let's get him. But I have a feeling this might run a little bit.
Seb, I don't know if you can cover. Go on. You speak before, and I'll ask you the question after.
Me and Paul agree on a lot, but I disagree on that. I don't think it will run very long. I think it's not far from being done, and I'd also disagree with the. See, I've annoyed Paul so much now.
Yeah, you've done it, mate. He's gone.
He's gone. I also think that I've lost my train of thought for a second. I think that with negotiations, I think all it is obviously we're Spurs boys. We follow Spurs. We pontificate and deliberate over every little minutiae of any dealing. And I think you can see with Man United and Mason Mount and Arsenal and Declan Rice, Man City and Declan Rice, there's a lot of prevaricating. I've heard so much today with Arsenal. Well, they've bid 90 million, just pay the 100 and get it done. It doesn't kind of work like that. And there'll be so much going on in the background. There's so many small parts to structures, payment terms, personal terms, houses, accommodation, cars, family, you name it. It's debated and deliberated about. I did hear that personal terms are not a problem, and that's kind of been agreed, and it is just a fee. I'm sure where there's a will, there's a way, and I think there definitely is a will. I'd be really excited by James Maddison. I think he would instantly solve a lot of not necessarily issues, but I think he fits the style of play perfectly. No surprise to me that the news has come out that Postecoglou has said he is he's the main target for that role. Doesn't surprise me at all. I think in terms of set pieces, which obviously we know we are good at, and we were good at them last season, but to bring him in to add to that. And yeah, I don't quite understand that question. Why does Maddison want to come to London, not for the football? Spurs are huge. He plays for a championship club, and Spurs are the biggest team out there that want him. It's a bit of a no-brainer.
I think Seb, he's saying compared to Newcastle, they're in the Champions League. That's the question. And from my understanding is that his family, particularly his missus, would rather London than to move further north.
Well, that's fine. But that's the draw that we've got. I think also it's very important to any player that you want to feel like your first choice target. And I think for the news that's come out over the last few weeks, he is our first choice target. And I'm not quite sure he was Newcastle's, as you've seen with Tonali going there. And yeah, I agree with Paul. Tonali's a cracking player. 70 million seems like, I think 70 million euros. That's a lot of money still. But he's a very good player. He's been good for years, to be fair. Struggled in his first season at Milan, but obviously won the championship, not season gone, the season before. And seemed to do okay in Champions League games that I watched this season. So I'm sure he's a good player. But you can pick Maddison up for 50 million quid. I did hear something else today that I thought was quite interesting. This year left on your contract now, don't think it's that big a deal anymore. Used to be kind of that would make the price 20 million quid, 10 million quid, whatever. Ooh, you can get them on a free. These boys are on such big money now that it doesn't kind of really matter, and the players are prepared to hold out. So the club are able to kind of demand what they feel, and it's kind of works in a kind of reverse way, because, for instance, Spurs with Kane in this last year, I'm not sure that if £80 million came in this season, we would take it. This summer, we would take it. We can afford as a club to go, no, we'd rather have the player than the 80 million. The same as Brentford can say, no, we'd rather have the player than 20 million. And Leicester would they weren't relegated, could say, we'd rather have the player than 50 million, because the amount of money and everything else that comes in, because you have that player, that's part of it. People want to see that player, so you're on the telly and things like that. That makes up that 40, 50, 60 million in no time. So I'm not sure it's that kind of crucial now to be saying players in the last year of their contract are going to go for a lot less money than what you'd expect. I don't think we see that anymore.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that could move it quickly to back up Seb's story is that I gather that Leicester would like the money. Obviously, if we sign on a 5-year contract, normally the money would be paid over 4 or 5 years and then accounted for with that in that similar way. Kulusevski being the oddity here, where he's on a 5-year contract, but we're paying for him over 6 years, which is quite unusual and something that Levy's done quite cleverly in cash flow terms. Leicester need the cash flow as well as they need the money in the accounts. So if we were to buy him for 50 million, their accounts this year would show 50 million pound, which would get them a bit out of the hole they're in. But cash flow wise, obviously we could still pay it over 5 years, but it sounds like they want it over 3 years. Now,
so
if
50,
we can...
So 50 mil goes on the balance sheet for 22-23, but they actually get the cash over the length of the contract that we sign for. Okay. All right.
Yeah. That's the way it goes. So when you sell a player, it goes straight into the accounts. Even if you haven't got the physical cash, it just goes on as a debtor on the balance sheet. But if you buy a player, it's then spread over the length of the contract.
Do you know who they need? They need Don Paratici to sort this out for them for cash flow.
I mean, obviously, Leicester were hit massively. Their owners were hit massively by COVID because their business is airports, isn't it? And it destroyed their money. Sorry, Gibbo.
No, sorry. I was just saying, how do you guys, say if the Maddison deal does come off, how do you see that midfield? Because it's Ange plays a 3, doesn't he? Most of the time, 99% of the time. How do you see that midfield 3? How do you see us lining up? Do you think we'll bring someone else to come in there, or do you think they'll use? Do you think Maddison will be the final piece of that 3-man midfield with the players we got? I know Bentancur's injured.
Yeah, but it'll probably be something along the lines of Skipp, Bissouma, and Maddison until Bentancur is fit, and then Skipp will come out. Bissouma will be a 6 pivot, and I think probably it'd be Bentancur and Maddison as our roving number 8s. That's the way I see it.
Seb, how do you
need 6, don't you? You need 6 for 3.
Similar. I mean, sorry.
You need 2 players for each position, so you need 6 midfielders, don't you? So if we're assuming Hojbjerg is going, which seems to be the vibe, because he might have some value. We have Bissouma's your holder. Who's your second holder? Is that Skipp? I mean, Bentancur could do it.
He only has a single pivot. He only plays with a single pivot, doesn't he?
You need a rotation. You need a sub.
Oh, sorry.
So Sarr. Matar. So you.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The way I see it a bit differently, actually. I see Skipp and Matar in there. I think Bissouma can do it, but I think I see Bissouma as the closest thing that we've had to Dembele. I'd like to see him a bit further up. So yeah, I can see Maddison and Bissouma almost linear with the 3, but then the top 2 obviously split into those wide positions. That's what Ange has played with Celtic. So effectively, 1 old school kind of 4, if you like, and 2 8s. I think there's options. I wouldn't be surprised if a few kids kind of stake a claim. I do think Alfie Devine has got a future, and I think this is his season. I did see a tweet today from someone who I think says whether someone says they're respected, or someone else is saying they're tier 1 or whatever. All this Twitter stuff that I don't really understand, saying that Dembele and Lo Celso will be given a chance. I can't see it, but who knows? We'll see what happens in pre-season. But obviously, they're options that could well be considered. You just don't know. Abbott is a cracking youth player. I think the lad Craig as well is. We've got some talent, and I would expect 1 or 2 to be able to come in and kind of show what they can do during pre-season. But Sarr is an interesting one as well, because he can potentially play a role further up. He's got good movement, pace, strength, vision. He's raw, but then I think a lot of the boys that we're looking at bringing in are raw. Can we talk about a potential target or not, John?
Well, I just thought Daniel's put this. I want to see ambition from the board. The risky signings of Vicario Tapsoba Van der Ven would be a huge risk that, based on recent history, will flop. So, do you want to talk about either of those centre backs?
Well, I would suggest that of all the names that are going, that have been mentioned across the transfer world right now, okay, for potential transfers, I would say Kyle Walker's not a risk. Okay, he's going to cost you a fortune in wages. I'd say Declan Rice is not a risk. He's going to cost you 300 grand a week and 90 million quid. And obviously Bellingham wasn't a risk. And I'm sure wherever Mbappe decides to roll up, that's not a risk. Mason Mount at 55 million quid, that's a risk. Seen it last season with the likes of Anthony, 85 million quid, that was a risk. You can see it we've been linked with Sancho at 45 million discounted. That's a risk, even at 45 million, right? So what are the names that Daniel, I think wants us to go for that are risk-free? Because I don't see them anywhere. Certainly not ones that we can afford, or ones that would want to come to our club. So James Maddison, he's a risk. He's a good player, really good player.
Like you're right, Seb, because I probably won't be, but like I said, I get a little bit of a David Bentley vibe from the old thing. I hope that's just like being in my head. But Bentley was the next big thing. He'd been in the England squad, likened to Beckham, free kicks and all this, scoring goals for Blackburn, who were pretty average at the time, and we got him in, and he was bobbins. So do you know what I mean? I hope it don't work like that, but I get that kind of vibe from it. So even Maddison's going to be a risk. Everybody thinks he's nailed on, that he'll be something special and he'll be brilliant for us. And I hope he is, and there's a good chance he will be. But, I'm just likening it to the David Bentley situation. They're all risks, aren't they? New managers coming in, everybody. Transfers, new managers, it's all risks. There's very few guaranteed that are going to absolutely nailed on work. You just never know.
Those names there, Daniel, are Premier League players. So you take a slight element of risk out of it. But that's all I can see. Laporte is obviously a good player.
I think he'd be great for us, Laporte. I think Laporte would slot in really well for us.
I'd like Laporte. I like Maddison because I think he's got a bit of I don't know if you call it je ne sais quoi or whatever. He's got about him. He's to me, he's a bit like he's what I want to see in a soccer player. He's got that kind of impudence, self-confidence, a little bit cheeky. I like him. I wasn't that fussed about David Raya. Everyone seemed to be that's the name, and it was kind of jumping on the bandwagon a little bit. I wonder how many people had actually watched him. Yes, he's good at sweeping. Yes, he's good with his feet. There wasn't too much more that I saw that really, really kind of set him apart. We've got to be careful that you do pay a premium for established Premier League players, definitely, but they're not the only players in the world. As we've seen with, go back to saying about Brighton and Brentford and the like, and their scouting networks. You want to go and spend 4 million on a kid from Belgium who's suddenly now worth 90 million quid.
Yeah, absolutely. Matthew is saying VDV and Tapsoba are no risk because our defence is so bad. They couldn't be. The four of us could probably do a better job than some of our guys have been at certain times this season. Any of you play left back? I've got a swinger on the left. I could probably just about cover it.
Don't get me anywhere.
I just use my left for standing on. I can't use my left foot at all.
I am going to tell you something now from yesterday that I was really chuffed with. Right?
Oh no! Here we go.
I've got to tell you. So I was also playing against Stuart Nethercott, and I was on the left wing.
He didn't do you for pace. You must have done him for pace, Seb.
Well, no, he's quicker. I'll tell you what, he's quicker than he looks.
Oh, yeah.
But I was going down the left wing against the right back, who I have to admit I didn't know. And I'm not left-footed. I use my left foot a lot though because my right knee's knackered. And Stuart Nethercott shouted over and went, "Take him on the outside to the defender. He's all left foot. And for me, that was brilliant because I'm not left-footed at all. So I absolutely loved that. That was one of the highlights of my day.
Oh, here we go. It's all right. Keith can play left back. He's 40, so we're all good.
No, 40 years ago.
He played 40 years ago, mate.
He's
40
80.
years ago. Oh, Christ. Sorry. Oh.
Yeah, don't put me
Keith, I'm
anywhere
sure
near
you
the
must, what, you
defence.
60, 65 now? I'm sure you could do a job. You know, you'd probably be stronger in the tackle than Sess, wouldn't you, to be fair? Reguilon. Let's have a quick chat about Reguilon.
Glass, like,
I've heard rumours that
Reguilon,
Reggie's going. Have you heard of this?
No.
No.
I haven't
Do you
heard-
reckon he can come back in?
No.
No.
I think the problem was that was a loan that did not work, wasn't it? He's basically not played for, what he must have had. He must have had something like 20 games in 2 years. So that's a hard thing to kind of come back and be the flying left back. I can't see that, to be honest. I'd be surprised. I don't know what we'll get for him. Like I say, he's barely played. I think he had 4 games. I read, was it last season?
He's injured, wasn't he?
Yeah, he got
Was
sent off
injured
in his first game, I think, as well. He was injured most of the season. Right, there's 100 people watching, only 38 likes. Come on, guys, please click the like button. Do us a favour. Means I won't get moaned at, and we can move on. Keep doing this great content for you. Right.
Can we ask a question as well to the viewers? Can we ask, what is it that Paul keeps putting in his mouth? Is it Skittles, olives, or peas? It's one of those 3.
It's not Skittles, is it?
It's
His
going to be
body's a
olives,
temple,
isn't
isn't
it?
it?
It's going to be olives.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah, go on.
Snuff. Next over is snuff.
Great.
Oh, it's great.
Great.
Ah.
Sorry.
Oh, Daniel,
Is it really off-putting? Because I've not eaten all day and I'm absolutely Hank Marvin. And sorry if it's putting me off. Sorry.
No, there's no. I just wondered what it was. I genuinely thought it was Skittles when you first go on.
Fucking dare you, Settle. Sorry, I sworn there.
Oh, there's the algorithm gone.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
Paul, it was Paul's fault.
Sorry. Oh, it's not that Owen doesn't swear ever, is it? Dear, oh dear. All right, yeah, okay.
Normally when he's about 6 beers in, though.
Yeah.
You're the 6 grapes in.
Yeah.
There we go.
Jimbo's got it. Yeah, grapes. Caviar.
He's
Oh, yeah.
the diver. Shall we have a quick chat about this picture that appeared today, which apparently is Stansted Airport? On the left-hand side, you see Alan Dixon, who's the Spurs sort of head of security player liaison, who is Daniel Levy's brother-in-law. And then there's some other people there. And then in this picture, I know Paul knows the answer and Gibbo knows it. Seb, do you know who the guy in the middle is there? The guy with the very receding hairline?
He is, I believe, chief translator.
His name is Roberto. He's the player liaison, and he speaks 4 languages. The reason I know that, I mean, Steve Diver told me he speaks 9, but Amazon documentary told me, there he is, that he speaks 4 languages. And there he was in that famous meeting between Tanguy Ndombele and Daniel Levy. So they were obviously meeting somebody at the airport today. We believe Vicario came yesterday, as we discussed earlier. So who do we think was coming today? Anyone exciting? Or was it Paratici's replacement?
It looks like it was that Vicario. I know Steve said he stayed at the lodge last night, but...
To be fair, Steve said a player who isn't a Spurs player stayed at the lodge last night. So that might have been someone else.
Yeah.
He was assuming it was Vicario.
I can't see it being anybody else, but I'm waiting for Vicario's agent or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I would hazard a guess. It's the new Spurs women's manager. Yeah, I've let the cat out of the bag.
Right. Oh, nicely linked, Seb. Go on then. You tell us what little bit you know.
John, just before you start, Seb, just before you start, put the picture back up again.
Which one? This one?
No, the one before that when they're at the airport. No, one before that, please.
There we go.
They're all drinking. I mean, it's nobody Italian. They're all drinking fucking Costa coffee. Come on. I mean, do you know what I mean? It's just like, could you imagine like coming for like your big kind of like you're meeting and they give you a Costa coffee? It's like,
Cafe Nero, surely. If you got big meeting,
it's like the ultimate insult, isn't it? Look, and I bet they've all got like black Americanos which have been stewing for hours. It's no, sorry, that's just a little aside. Seb, sorry, carry on.
New women's manager has been identified and he's incoming. Not sure how many people. Not saying people don't care, but if you follow women's football, obviously we had quite a disastrous season last season. Lucky to kind of stay up in the top league in the end in the WSL. So they're having a huge reset, much like the men's team, a whole new kind of thought process. And we have identified a Norwegian coach. I don't know her name, but she is famed for kind of identifying Scandinavian talent. It's obviously quite a hotbed for women's football, and we've actually yet to announce 3 or 4 other signings as well. That the manager has identified. She's been around the training ground. She's seen everything. I found out quite a bit yesterday. Quite surprising to me, and then what others think about how the women's team works and the money involved. And I have to be kind of careful what I say. But it was only 18 months, 2 years ago that we were on a level with Manchester United women's team, and they have just kind of gone to a different level than us, and the lack of investment, if you like, is kind of quite worrying. So the hope is, obviously, it started with Beth England in January, and to kind of get her out of the. She was having a bit of a hard time at Chelsea, and obviously she's come into Spurs and managed to force her way back into the World Cup squad, which is brilliant for her. And I think the hope is that there is going to be a little bit of money spent on the women's team. If you think that when we signed Beth England, we broke the women's transfer record, and it was only 250,000. You would hope that there is money available that I understand comes from exactly the same pot, that there is money available to spend on the women's team. And I think going forward, it is kind of incumbent on the club, really, as a kind of whole. What's the word I'm looking for? A whole process, a whole club, that we sort that women's team out quite quickly. It's becoming quite an important thing now. The big clubs, whether it be Manchester City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool, that women's team is up there front and foremost alongside the men's team. I think we want to be taken seriously also across Europe. I think it's a big thing that we need to get sorted. And it's not a money issue. The money is there. Like I said, it comes from the same pot. So I would hope that with this identification of a new manager, that we get that sorted pretty quickly. And there'll be a few names coming in for anyone who follows women's football. Could be quite exciting.
It's good to know. I think, unfortunately, last year the women's form was worse than the men's form, so I think we all lost a bit of interest in them as well, didn't we? So that'd be great if they came on. Yeah, Gov, just to cover your question, Alex Morgan was only on loan.
She's on loan,
and she did go home, so that ended, as did Spurs' season pretty much last year, and only really because we had Beth England that we stayed alive in the WSL, I think. Seb, you want to talk about this young man, don't you?
Because there's no direct links to him, so there's nothing to get excited. But talking about going back to things that I think helped Tottenham in the past, and the signing, particularly Luka Modric. I know you mentioned him earlier, and he's just signed another year extension with Real Madrid, which is good to see, because I think he could have gone to Saudi Arabia. So this is the type of player that I want us to go after. £17.5 million buyout clause, absolutely ripping it up in Turkish football. Scored a beauty against Wales in the week for Turkey. So I think he's been capped a few times now by Turkey. He's only 18. He is someone I am sure will get a big move this summer for a relatively small amount of money. 17.5 million now for an upcoming talent like that is nothing. He's been linked with Sevilla and a couple of other Spanish teams. But this is someone. This is the type of signing. It doesn't necessarily have to be this player, but if we signed someone like this, this is where I would think, hold on, we are getting our ducks in order now. We are identifying young European talent, 18, 19-year-old. And like I said it before, people hate me for saying it, but with some kind of sell-on value, what Daniel Levy likes, whether you like it or not. And actually, in 5-10 years' time, this is going to be another 60, 70, 80, 90 million pound player who we either progress with or we're able to sell for a lot of money. I really like this player. I've watched him towards the end of last season. I caught a little bit of the Wales game, and he's someone who could play that kind of 8/10 role, bit like Maddison. He's got amazing vision, and he's strong. His movement's good. I mean, that picture there, he looks quite slight, but his movement's good. He holds the ball well. But like I say, it doesn't necessarily have to be this player, but there is talent out there. We don't have to go and spend the 60, 70 million pound. There's talent out there that we should be identifying, and we should be doing our best to get. I'd be surprised if we're not linked with him in the next few weeks, because I think, like I say, I think he will move in the next month or two, and yeah, should be someone that we're all over.
Seb, I think the only question I'd have, and I see he's got 4 caps for Turkey, which as an 18-year-old is quite, is amazing. Whether now we are fully Brexited, whether he'd be able to get a work permit because of the work. I don't know exactly what work permit rules are. Which might make it more complicated for him, but they might see him as a young potential player. But
with English clubs, not us. I have to say, I've seen him linked with Newcastle and Arsenal. So.
And I saw Liverpool earlier as well. So, yes,
okay,
that's a fair point.
Yeah.
The other player that comes to mind, and those regular viewers who've been watching this for a while will remember Seb's transfer talk shows last summer. And Alex Scott was a player that Seb linked us to back then, and his name's still rumbling around. How would you compare that lad to, say, Alex Scott, for example?
A slightly different player. I think Gula is, or Gula, I've heard kind of that pronunciation. He's more, he's more of your Maddison type, I would say. And I would say, if I had to kind of think of Alex Scott, I'd say he's more of your Bellingham type, a little bit more box to box. Like them both, wouldn't be disappointed with either. I think that the interest in Maddison was in Scott was definitely real last year, and then obviously he's progressed even more at Bristol City. And again, you make a good point, John, because apparently it's 20 million quid would get him out of Bristol City. He will be someone who someone gets for 20 million now, and much like James Maddison, will move for 50, 60 million in 4 or 5 years' time. Go on, Paul.
Oh.
Who does he start in front of in our team?
Don't know if that's a good. Who, Alex Scott or
both of these guys?
I think I do think there's 2 8 roles, potentially, especially with Bentancur out. I do think that.
Okay.
As we said, I expect Hojbjerg to leave. I expect Skipp and Sarr and Divine to come in. But I think potentially you're looking at 7 midfielders for 3 slots in that squad.
For 3 competitions.
Yeah.
The other thing you got to remember is that we're going to be playing this really high-intensity game. We can make 5 subs. There will have to be rotation, I think. And it will be, there'll be a player that will come out of the blue almost, be Divine or something like that, who will impress Ange and might get a chance to really stake a claim. So that could happen. Scott might come in and not see much time, but 3 months down the line, get some game time. It's a squad game. We can't just, we tried it with Conte. We played with 11 players, didn't we? The back end last season, we played really well. And then when we started playing 2 games a week, we couldn't cope because we didn't have enough players who had enough game time. We had the quality because we had Bissouma, but he wouldn't put him on the pitch. Because he didn't know the system. What a load of rubbish. We need a squad.
I'd be worried if you brought these players in and you've got an Alfie Divine sitting on the bench. I think I spoke about this when I was last on. I don't know anything about
Yeah.
his Turkish guy. But what I've had a little look at Scott. I've pulled some YouTube videos and some Bristol Reddit forums and stuff, and had a quick look at him. And I don't think there's any much difference between him and Devine, to be honest, from what I've seen.
Paul, do you not think Devine could go out on loan? Obviously, he could
No,
go out on loan.
no.
That's a stupid
He
question.
could, he could go. He could go on loan. He could go on loan to, I would say, even someone like a Fulham, and play 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. But that's not going to help him. He needs to play in, week out. Devine would go on loan, and it'd be a high-end Championship team. In my opinion, anything lower, he's wasting his time.
Do you think there's more likelihood that he will stay or that he'll go on loan?
I think he'd stay under Angeball. If we're going to play, as John just said, there, high intensity, pressing midfielding, trying to win the ball back in the oppo's defensive third, we're going to need that. I don't think if we bring in a young player like this Turkish guy, or they're going to get much game time. I really don't. Not this season. We're playing one game a week up until the cup competitions, and then we should have enough covering midfield without actually, adding to it at the moment. I want to see Sarr given some opportunity. I think there's a real football there. We're going to lose Sarr, we're going to lose Bissouma, and we're going to lose Son over the winter period to their cup competitions, their national cup competitions, Asia Cup and African Cup of Nations, respectively. So there might be an opportunity there for someone to come in, but whether you're going to get a new kind of kid in and then just going to like trust him to come into like the league games when those players are out of the cup competitions, I'm not sure. I just don't think we need another attacking midfielder. If we go for Maddison, we should have enough cover there for one game a week until the cup competitions, in my opinion. That's all.
To be fair, the League Cup starts at the end of August, doesn't it? Because we actually have to play the second round this year for the first time in years.
So, I didn't know that.
Because we're not in Europe.
They'll need to play though, won't they, John? He'll want that his ideal first 11 playing. You know, I can't see us going into a League Cup. If it's Chesterfield away, I don't think we're going to be going there now and having wholesale changes early in the season. I think it will be a case of getting players bedded in, getting ideas bedded in, getting systems working, getting people. So, you know,
there is kind of one caveat to all of this, which is that Ange historically has had a huge instant turnover of players, almost instantaneously. So there might well be one or two that leave that we're not expecting. Obviously, we've mentioned Hojbjerg, whether it's on loan or out. There might be one or two that we're not expecting that go, that obviously then need replacing. Don't ask me for names, but I'm sure there'll be some centre backs that leave. At least there'll definitely be at least one. I think we know Davidson's going to go. Whether there's another one, and I think there'll be one or two that we're not expecting. I think I read somewhere that within 2 transfer windows at Celtic, he'd got in 13 and lost 12, something like that. So it's huge. You know, he's not the only place that he's done it. He's known for kind of getting in the players that he wants and getting rid of the ones that he doesn't. I just hope that the board kind of go with him on that. I would hope that they would. So that's the caveat. It was funny that you mentioned Alex Scott and Alfie Devine and then said high-level championship club, because you're right in one sense, Paul. What would be the point of, as for instance, buying Alex Scott and loaning Alfie Devine to Bristol City? You know, it's that thing where they're very similar. So you're right in that respect. A lot will depend, I'm sure, on the first few weeks of pre-season. And I expect Ange to make his mind up on players quite quickly. And you know, I think they'll be given a chance, but I think he'll know very quickly who he wants and who can go.
This will be the first pre-season tournament when they go to Australia that I'll watch in full for these very reasons. So I'm really interested to see what happens. Really interested to see what kind of like impact he can have straight away. Ange. So it's going to be good.
There's a lot of question marks on a lot of players. I mean, you probably can name on one hand the players I think are fine. You know, and one of them's out injured in Bentancur. You know, there's maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I wouldn't say it's more than 7 or 8 that are like, yes, definitely they are staying. We will keep them. So you know, there's a lot to play for. Yeah, I mentioned earlier the Celso Ndombele. We haven't talked about Harry Winks. That's another midfield option. Joe Rodon. All these players that we kind of, Sessegnon. We had Tanganga. There's a lot. We've got a huge squad. There will be a huge churn, and hopefully it's replaced with some slightly better talent, because we have got some players in my mind that aren't, certainly not top level Premier League quality, but some even not even Premier League quality. So we'll see. I think it'd be an exciting time. I just, I kind of will back the club in terms of who they bring in. If I think, as I've said, that there's some kind of talent identification going on.
Yeah, good. So, a question here from Keith: where are the leaders? Strong men, not a load of young prospects. We have definitely lacked leaders in recent times in our squad, and we don't seem to be getting linked to anyone that I can think of. Is there anyone that's standing out for you guys that we might look in to go for?
John, I always say this about players, but I think the game's slightly different now. Like I say it, and I feel like a dinosaur for saying it, but there's not a lot of those types of players about now, and I don't know if as many players respond to that type of player anymore. Like Kane leads by example; he's a leader. I think if Maddison comes
Kane
in,
is a leader. There's no doubt for me that he is the leader.
I've heard interviews with Maddison, and he fronts up quite a lot for when he's been interviewed after poor performances for Leicester. He's come out and fronted up, so I think he'll be another guy that could possibly come in. So there's a few, isn't there? But I don't think there's that many of those characters around now. And I think Hojbjerg is one of them. But I like Hojbjerg. I know he's got a lot of. He was poor towards the end of last season. I know he's got a lot of detractors, but I think. But I think he'll be out the door. I just genuinely don't think there's that many of those characters about, John, anymore.
Yeah, I'm looking at Seb. And with the way the sky is going a bit darker, it almost looks like he's on the Star Wars set or something, with the blue lights behind him.
I thought when Gibbo said I don't see any leaders anymore, and you said I'm looking at Seb, I thought you come on straight away.
Do you get what I mean, lad? That type of that. I talk about Roy Keane, Vieira's, Tony Adams, those types of. That type of mentality in the way they play their football. They're not about anymore, are they?
You don't have it anymore. Those type of players now, and we saw it with the end of Roy Keane under Ferguson, those type of players now, unfortunately, whatever you think of the other players, upset the dressing room. Yeah. That's the reason why they're not there now. That's the reason why someone like Harry Kane is captain and leader, because he leads by example and he doesn't upset anyone with anything that he does. You saw what happened with Hugo and Son in the documentary. That's not. I don't believe that to be commonplace. That was something. That was a big event. I can't believe that happens every week in the dressing room. And if it does, I think it happens a lot calmer than that. There was obviously that incident where I think Spurs lost to United, and Jose had him in the kind of meeting room afterwards and asked what had gone wrong, and Kane spoke up and said, we didn't perform and there are certain players not performing. I think that's as strong as it gets. I don't think you get, certainly no one grabbing each other by the scruff of the neck and saying you're not doing your job, or you need to pull your finger out and whatever. It's.
I have a feeling there was a bit of that at Newcastle though, between Romero and Hugo, from what I understand, which is why Hugo didn't come back on in the second half. So that's probably because Romero is a bit of a head case as well.
See, I think Romero could. I think Romero, if Romero's got a lot to do this season, in my eyes, I think there is a world-class defender there. I really do. I think some of the stuff he does when he's on it and he wants to do it is amazing. Too often than not, you see him go in and it's just rash. He loses his head for that split second, and before you know it, it's like Champions League and he's sent off. I know we were chasing the game, but anyway, and stuff like this. There could be a quote unquote leader there if he just gets his head right, and we see the Romero for Argentina as what we see at Spurs, the Romero that we see at Argentina. I don't think we're going to see it. I get the feeling, And I go back to something that Brendan, who does the podcast of Seven myself, said he thinks his football has completed it. I get that vibe from him at the moment. Romero looks very happy on his Instagram, away with his national team and his wife and his lovely kids. That's great, but I want him to like come back and be that player for us. And if he was, then he'd be a great captain. I think it could be the making of him. But
Paul, we may also see with a new coach, new ideas, new sort of like culture around the dressing room. We may see players that we've not seen or we believe have that. They may come to the fore. Confidence. They may have stronger sort of like attributes in the areas that Ange wants them to be stronger. Do you know what I mean? What he wants from players. And you may see somebody like, I'm not a massive Skipp fan, but somebody like Skipp might be like, look, you're the guy I'm relying on. You're going to be my number 6 or whatever. Or Sarr, you're going to be my number 6. I want you to take responsibility in the middle of that park for doing this role. And they may step up and become a leader.
Skipp, he certainly leads for the under-21s, England under-21s. He's not started at the minute because he's going with Angel Gomez at the moment to start in his top competition. But in the England under-21s, before he got the hip injury and he got the infection, Skipp was a leader. You could see the guys. You got your Gibbs Whites. You've got these kind of guys. You've got Anthony, the blonde-haired kid that was at Everton now at Newcastle.
Gordon.
Anthony Gordon, quality kind of Premiership players. Listening to Skipp, Skipp's got that, and I think Mourinho said as well he has future captain potential or something. He said to Sky Italia or something.
Yeah.
You're right, but Kane is our de facto leader purely because he leads by example. Once he goes,
I thought, Paul, that end of last season when he got the armband, I know he was brilliant anyway, but I think he actually stepped up with the captain's armband. He took the responsibility. He was really the only one who literally got us over the line in games, wasn't he? We finished 8th or whatever.
That was Kane's best season for us last season.
He sort of like, I think once he got that armband, he did step up, and I think he, hopefully other players will do it.
You're right. To do what he did in an underperforming team with 3 different managers. Yes, at the end, his mate was in charge. But anyway, he didn't. Yeah, Kane last season. Yeah, that's the best I've seen him for us all round. He did everything. Last season. It was, and especially coming back from the missed penalty, national duty over last summer at the comp, come back for that and do what he did last season. And I watched him, as you know, I go all at home games, went to a few away games. Luckily, he was fantastic. Kane, he was fantastic. Yeah. Never take that for granted. Never take what you saw from Kane for granted. And if you've got that guy up front and he's playing at that ability, you cannot help it be inspired. You can't. If you're not inspired, you don't deserve to be on the field with him. So
he's probably a big reason why Maddison's turning up, mate.
Yeah, yeah.
Plays for him with England. Probably thinks if I strike up a relationship with him here, it's going to bode well for my international career. The guy oozes class.
Massive season for the Euros. We mentioned it, I think, on a previous YouTube. I do believe in a reverse kind of way that those England boys and some of those international boys for the Euros and stuff will be looking at kind of pacing their season better because they haven't got to play in Europe and things like that, staying fit. And like you say, Harry Kane and Tottenham Hotspur is a massive draw, especially if you're an England player. As you say, Gibbo, strike up that relationship, and you could be on the plane. And I think I expect wherever he goes, I think Maddison will be. I think he's there's no one quite like him. He can do something a little bit different to other England players. I mean, just on England, I think they're fantastic at the moment. And I hope they carry it on to a big tournament because I know they get a lot of, on the chats that we have and things like that, people tend to be, I'm not watching England, it's boring. Well, I don't find it boring. I haven't found England boring for a good while now. I think there's some fantastic players coming through, whether it's Trent, whether it's Grealish, whether it's even players like Conor Gallagher, who's obviously someone else that we've been temporarily linked with. I can't see that happening, but there is so much talent coming through, and fair play to Southgate because I think he's using them. But yeah, to go back what we were talking about originally, England is not quite sure what that means, but England is and Tottenham is a big draw to England internationals when you can play with Harry Kane and Eric Dyer.
Exactly.
Oh, you had to ruin it, didn't you? Had to take it down a notch. We'll be going hour and 25, 99 people watching. Please do click the like button. But on that, I think we're going to draw it to a close for this evening, gentlemen. Seb, thanks very much for joining us.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It was always a pleasure.
And obviously, I knew you were doing something this weekend because you asked if you were going to be on. I knew, he's playing football with some Spurs legends. He wants to talk about it, doesn't he?
Nah.
And he did a little Cruyff turn and didn't break his knee.
I've just been sent some photos actually, and I actually look like I can play football. I don't look like I'm hobbling or crippled, which is
well.
Photoshop.
Ping him over.
Photoshop.
Gibbo. We'll put him on the Cheese Room Twitter for you.
Yeah, we'll get him on here.
Gibbo, well done for staying awake, mate, after your Glastonbury epic.
Cheers, mate. I'm feeling all right, to be fair. I got home at 2:00 this morning. Got my head down for 4 or 5 hours. And, yeah, if I have a good night's kip tonight, I'll be all right, mate. I rolled back the years this weekend, mate. Rolled back the years in the front of the crowd, jumping about, breaking my flip-flops.
Now you keep old enough to take them. It's, great, isn't it?
Yeah, for a man in his mid-40s, I did all right, mate. But thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me on. Good show. Good to be on with Seb and Paul again.
Cheers, mate. Paolo?
It's always good to come on the Champions League with you boys. It's always good to get the call from the under 23s, the under 21s on a podcast. There will be more podcasts coming, won't there, Seb? Yes, yeah.
And Martin will be on the case otherwise.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
No,
and Mark, we'll have to put it in Slack because he won't watch this, so you'll have to put it in Slack to let him know.
Yeah, we'll be doing pods, but no, it's good to come on. And yes, I'm sorry about eating the grapes, but I had to eat something else. I would have gone catabolic. So yeah, thanks for having me on, John. It's been good.
There we go. Talking of Slack, if you want to join our Patreon, just £3 a month. It's patreon.com/The Cheese Room Podcast. It took ages for someone to point out that JP had missed out the word "the" in the address, but it is now correct now. And we've got chat groups, we've got prizes. Seb runs a prediction league when he can be bothered to update the league table. That is, what's the prize this year? Was that been sorted, Seb?
That will be sorted. Yeah.
Okay.
Who won? I only run the league. I don't sort the prizes. I leave that to Franco. Can I just add as well that if you do join Patreon, you don't have to speak to Dave. It's not obligatory. So I'm only joking, Dave.
Or Daniel Levy either. So there's the address. Otherwise, it's on our Twitter page. It's on the Facebook page. Have a click. You come and join in, and you can chat to the guys. And we'll be back. Craig will be back Wednesday with Jack, possibly James, unless he's going on a pub crawl, which is to be decided. And we've got a new debutant, Josh Hughes. And Friday, Caller will be here with
the Irish Hotspur.
The Irish Hotspur is here, and JP and Cameron will be here again. So there you go. So on that note, I'm going to say, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.